Did you know that most relationships fail because of poor communication? Erica says if you apply the 80-20 rule, communication is roughly 80% active listening and comprehension. Today, we're going to talk about ways to help you build up your communication muscles. So please stick around and enjoy the show. Welcome, my friends, to another episode of Coffee with Tea. I'm your host, Tanya Tyler, and I'm excited because I'm going to be talking to you about communicating your ideas, and nobody who can express this better than Miss Erica Holston. So, Miss Erica, I want to welcome you to Coffee with Tea. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, T.
Oh, thank you. I see that your communications and relationships is the thing that's really passionate about. And you know, those are the two biggest factors that can really hurt people if they don't really know how to get those right. So how did those two things match up for what you want to do, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so that came about just having a natural love for people. And I've always just been someone who's been easily to talk with. And, you know, when you always have people coming to you, asking you for advice, even at the age of 16 years old, you know, I actually had one of my mentors ask me some dating advice. And I was just like, wow, like I must really be wise beyond my years. And so that just led me being inspired to help people with their relationship skills, giving them relationship advice as well as communication skills, because you cannot have a flourishing relationship unless you know how to talk with people, listen with people, and so forth.
Right. Oh, like I said, half the battle of our relationships downfall because we don't know how to effectively communicate. So what are some of the key things that you would really say people miss when it's communications really can be a big factor? You know, what's one of the misconceptions that they just don't understand?
I think one of the misconceptions that people don't understand is that you really need to actively listen to someone else. And one of the things that I love to help people to understand is communication is really about servicing each other rather than just listening. Oh, well, this is my perspective. I want you to listen to me. And I just have to get whatever it is that I need to off of my chest. And when people have the mindset that I am going to communicate with you in mind, and hopefully in return, the other person would communicate with you as far as like being compassionate or being considerate of your feelings or your ideas and different things like that. So it's like a mutual exchange. It's a service to each other. So I think that, you know, again, people get the misconception that communication is just having the skill rather than servicing each other.
All right. I think we shared that we are former Toastmaster attendees. So I know in Toastmasters, for effective communication, they always say you have to have some good listening skills. So how important is being able to listen?
That is like one, the 80-20% rule. I would say that communication is possibly 80% listening, and then, you know, comprehension and being able to effectively communicate your ideas. But when it comes to active listening skills, like you're really trying to listen to the person perspective, as far as making sure that you're going to tell them what it is that they need to hear, and making sure that they understand you and you understand them. So I would say 80% of the time, people really need to be active listeners, not just hearers, but active listeners.
Right. So a couple of tips I heard for active listening, and I don't know if you really dive into, I'm assuming you would because you do communication, is when a person's ready to listen, they're not ready to respond, right?
Right, exactly. Like they are in listening mode, and then it's just like, okay, you're absorbing all the information that you need, And then you have this listening filter, like, okay, so I heard the person say this, and I think that if I say that, that I will be able to meet their needs. And then, you have that filter and then you respond, rather than, someone just saying something to you and you just blurting out whatever it is that you feel. It's just like, no, like we have to be what I would call emotionally intelligent to listen to someone and then digest it. And then after you digest it, then you can basically respond from what you've heard.
Right. So you're basically saying we should listen to understand. Is that what you're
Exactly.
saying? Rather than listening to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that being said, communication is one of the biggest things that really hinders us from either going forward and stuff like that. So how do you build upon communication if you don't really know exactly what it is you want to say? What keeps a person from going forward if they don't even know for themselves what they want?
Yeah, so if someone doesn't know what they want, usually, this is someone who could possibly have an issue with their confidence levels, or is someone who doesn't know exactly how to respond. But even if they don't know how to respond, communication is like a muscle. And if you work at building up your communication skills and, maybe even hire like a communication coach, or really, dive into, so what is it that I'm missing, and asking yourself those type of questions. And as you ask yourself those type of questions, then hopefully that can help you to build your communication skills with that communication muscle.
Right. So you're giving us a lot of insight. I mean, you look so young for those who are, like you said, you're wise beyond your years. But like I said, how do you have those difficult conversations? That's something you just have to say.
Yeah, so one of the ways that I help, people have those difficult conversations is asking yourself, like, what is really important to you? So how important is this relationship to you? How important is your colleague to you? How important is your career to you? And if you think about things and from that perspective, when you think about it, it's just like, okay, even though I am uncomfortable, even though that I don't want to have this conversation, it's necessary. So you really need to gauge what it is on your priority list. And if it's on your top tier of your priority list, work on being emotionally intelligent and moving past that fear, moving past that being uncomfortable, and moving past that uncertainty, and just saying to yourself, like, I know that my benefits are going to outweigh me being uncomfortable. And as you have that conversation, and again, if it meets your priority list and you know that you want to have those benefits, like, you are going to reap your rewards.
Right. And a lot of these things we're talking a little bit about business and because of your background and stuff like that, but you can apply this to personal, correct?
Yes, you can apply it to personal and professional, for sure.
Right. So how did you get into, I mean, I know, like you said, you talked about somebody asking you like the advice, but I mean, really, it takes a lot of passion to be able to say, I want to teach people how to communicate. So where did that really come from?
So have you ever heard that, some people are born with a natural gift? And that's what I believe that I was blessed with, was this natural gift. And once I had found out that this was one of my strengths, and having those interpersonal skills and being able to engage with someone, making them feel better about their situation, encouraging them, that's one of the things that fuels my fire. And it's just like, oh my goodness, like, girl, I'm getting ready to eat this steak. That's how passionate I am about communication. It's, to me, it's like eating a steak.
Right. And I love how we talked about in our pre-interview, you shared and you had me like a little like because you said you did Toastmasters and you like Toastmasters. So we're not going to talk about, how bad Toastmasters may have been, but you really said you wanted to go a little bit further. So how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so Toastmasters, as far as like the first group that I was a part of, I just felt like it was an entry level, and I definitely think that it did give me the tools that I needed at that time. And then I actually joined another speaking group, and that's called ESA. And, that group just helps you with overall, as far as being able to tell your story and being able to really grasp your audience and communicate effectively with feelings, because there is so much power in telling your story. And I think for me, the next level up was to actually cultivating my story to the point to where people can relate to me more. And again, like, to me, communication is like eating a steak. And so when I have that gut feeling that this is a good thing, I don't ignore it. I just run with it. And when I run with it, like, it just really feeds me, and it really helps me to become a better professional, a better coach, and it helps me to deliver, I guess, having a client tell and a relationship with my clients to the point to where they're just like, wow, like, we always have a wow factor in our session. So I'm just pretty excited about, communication, helping people tell their stories, me tell my story, and just leveling up in all aspects of communication in your life, and even business, or even your professional career.
Right. Do you think that we're missing, if the world doesn't know your story, that they're missing out on something? I know you said you're God-given, talents and stuff like that. So how important do you really feel like sharing your story is to anybody? I mean, to anybody.
Yeah.
But
Like, telling your story, for me, for you, anybody, like, that really encourages people. And I think that we are in a time right now where people are looking and people are hungry to hear each other's stories. People want to be inspired, people want that transformation in their life. And telling your story is so important because other people need you. I know for me, when I share my story, people always tell me, like, wow, like, that really inspired me, and I actually want to do X. And it's just like, if I didn't tell my story, if I wasn't a person who was selfless, that I could have been holding the key to someone's future. And so if we are able to tell our story, maybe we can help people unlock some things in their life. And that's what it's all about.
right. Well, I don't know exactly like the whole workings of how we networked or how we got connected, but I had I think we're mutual. We're in the same group together, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a mutual friend of us must have heard your story, I'm assuming, because he connected me to you, or connected us together. So were you already sharing your story, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so I actually connected with Apton through LinkedIn,
Shout
and
out to Abden again. Shout out to
yeah,
Abden.
yeah, yeah. Actually, reached. Well, he reached out to me through Facebook, and he was just saying, like, it's just so amazing just to connect with you. I love what it is that you're doing. People so need the services that you provide. And I just told him how I got started, as far as like being a person who was young, being wise beyond my years, being passionate about communication, and still not losing that fire, and then just building upon it. And so when he heard my story, he was just like, wow, that is amazing.
Again, shout out to Abden because he's connected me to a couple of people. So I want to really know, like, it was on the tip of my tongue. Bear with me for a moment.
That's okay.
What's like if somebody wanted to work on building their emotional intelligence, you mentioned it up earlier, what's a couple of like key things that would help them work on that?
Yeah, so I don't know if you remember, like, early part of our conversation, I had mentioned having a like communication filter, and that's part of the emotional intelligence filter. And so a lot of times, us as human beings, we can have self-doubt, we can, be disappointed with ourselves, or we can have fear. And so when we want to clearly communicate our ideas, because of those emotions, sometimes we just hold on to those things. But if we know that, we have to live a life full of courage, that we have to live a life, from a compassionate standpoint or kindness perspective, that if we work through those feelings and to say, you know what, like someone else needs to hear my idea, whether if it's on a professional level and moving yourself beside yourself, that if you are able to communicate your idea to them, that you can have the best idea out of your whole group. And so the importance of this is to have that filter and to not allow your feelings to control you. So that's my number one tip, is to not allow your feelings to control you, but to actually ask yourself again, what is your priorities and how is it that your message or your story can actually benefit someone else? Because if we just like lock ourselves up into fear, or we just lock ourselves up into disappointment, if we're not willing to move beyond that feeling and to say, you know what, I am bold, I am courageous, I am kind, and I can actually share my message, or I can clearly communicate my ideas to someone else.
Right. Do you live with a mantra by any chance? I just figured I'd ask.
No.
I liked what you shared about, getting out your comfort zone. So, Miss Erica, what's the one thing you really want to achieve this year? What's your number one goal for yourself?
So my number one goal is to actually help impact as many professionals and people as possible, and for people to have the tools for them to move forward, whether professionally or personally. I believe in living a life full of servitude and being that person who is that go-to person. And so I just want to help people to know that it's okay to feel the way that you feel, but don't remain where you are. And so if I'm able to impact people with that, let's say for the next year, I want to impact 150 people by December 2020. Like, I feel that I would be able to meet my goal. But see, what the most important factor here is that if I'm able to reach 150 people, that I could actually help them to have the domino effect. So, for example, if you have the communication skills, if you have the relationship tools, that you will be equipped, and then you can help equip someone else. So even though I impacted like 150 people, I can actually impact other people's families or other people professionally. And so essentially I would go from like 150 people to 300 people, but it's all about the domino effect. And that's what I'm all about, is helping people to be equipped, to be empowered, and to move forward with their life. So in return, they can help someone else.
That's powerful. I like that. So, what's the one thing you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, so one of the things that I want to leave the audience with when it comes to clearly communicating your ideas is, when you are talking with someone, to really listen to them. Meaning is that if you hear someone keep on saying, hey, I've been thinking about this and I've been thinking about that, well, that's the type of person that you should want to appeal to their logic and their reasoning. Secondly, if someone constantly talks to you about the knowledge that they have, many times they're coming from a perspective of life experiences. And so maybe you will want to clearly communicate your message by telling your story or reminding them of one of their stories. And then lastly, if someone keeps telling you, well, I feel like this, I feel like that, well, that's someone that you would possibly want to talk to them from a feeling or an emotional, intelligent perspective. And if you are able to apply think, knowledge, and feelings, and if you're able to do that, that let me tell you that you are going to change the game, because you're going to communicate to that person in the style that they want you to. Because again, communication is about serving each other, and it's two ways. So that's what I want people to know.
I love it. I love it. I would also like for the listeners who want to know, we're just about that time. Where can people find more information about you and your services and what you provide?
Yeah, so people can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and you can search Erica J. Holston, Holston, or you can visit vinelifecoaching.com.
Okay. I want to thank you so much for all that wisdom that you shared. I cannot believe how fast time goes by. So can maybe have you come back and we'll talk about this a little bit more, because it was fun. And I also want to thank everybody who turned in, and also make sure that your feedback is always welcomed on any of our shows. Email us with any guests or show ideas that you have, and links will be provided in our comments. And please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, take things in stride, go with the flow, and create your own path. And again, thank you, Erica, for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tanya.
Definitely learn a lot about communication, so I'd love to have you come back. And again, thank you for tuning into this episode of Coffee with Tea. We'll see you back here again. Bye-bye. Share with us, what show ideas would you like to see? Post your answers in the comments.
Hi everyone, this is Tanya popping in again to say thank you for listening to today's show. Coffee with Tea interviews are always free, and if you're enjoying the wisdom and insights that's being shared, please consider showing your support. By all means, buy me a coffee or become a supporter. Links are posted in the comments. And again, thank you for tuning in.